The Philadelphia Phillies have not been among one of the more active teams this MLB free agency, and one has to wonder why. With fan favorites and effective players like Jeff Hoffman walking out the door, one has to wonder why their replacements have not been made clear. Well, I want to discuss why a breakout for Orion Kerkering could be everything this Phillies organization needs and why he may be in line for just that. Now, to dive right into things, I want to start by pulling up the depth chart for this current bullpen. This is a significant area of concern for this Phillies team. This was something we viewed as a strength heading into last postseason and saw things collapse in those later innings. Now, there have been some names that have changed places already. I mentioned Jeff Hoffman, who I think we can basically approach with absolute certainty at this point that he will not be back in a Phillies uniform, as disappointing as that is. Carlos Estevez, sort of a similar situation there, but I would love if a rabbit is pulled out of the hat of Dane Dombrowski and either one of those names change. But to look at who the current options are, there is, of course, Matt Strahm returning, and a guy that we have the utmost confidence in. Jose Alvarado, a bit of a return to play kind of process here that we've seen the ups and downs with him. We hope we can catch lightning in a bottle and get him back on the right track, but there certainly have been the stretches where he's looked like a dominant pitcher and these stretches where you straight up cannot put him on the mound. Then to continue, Jordan Romano, a bit of a reclamation project and a guy that I hope is the dude. I just don't have a ton of belief in the elbow, and frankly, this is way more of a medical concern than a pitching concern. If he is fully healthy, he can be a very effective pitcher in this bullpen. I would like to think the Phillies would not take this type of risk unless they had gone deep and checked out those medical documents there, but who knows what will be the case. Then there's Orion Kerkering, who's going to be the center of this video here. We'll touch on him more in a second. Tanner Banks, a solid pitcher, a guy I'm fine with in the mid-innings. Same with Jose Ruiz, both guys that I actually thought pitched pretty well most of the time last year. And then Joe Ross, another addition at the bottom, a guy I'm pretty optimistic on. He's kind of being labeled as a swing guy, sort of Spencer Turnbull-like, but I think he could grow into a high-leverage guy if things go right this year. Now, to talk about Orion Kerkering specifically here, been a bit of an interesting path to the major leagues to this point. That he is a guy who's been put on a more accelerated pathway to the pros than really most players that we do see. Let's not forget that he made his major league debut just a couple weeks before the playoffs started in his first season, that being 2 years ago at this point. Pitched very limited opportunities in the regular season, and then was used in the playoffs by this Phillies team. Now, some of this was out of need from the Phillies, that they needed another arm there. There also was all these talks, which I thought were kind of crazy at the time and still do now, about like what an advantage it was that teams have not seen them. Yes, I understand that to an extent, that you want tape, you want film, you want to be able to look at a guy's tendencies. But on the other hand, this guy just hasn't pitched to the major league level, and you're throwing him against the best baseball players in the world in the highest leverage of opportunities and situations there with the playoffs at stake. Didn't go overly great for Kerkering in those playoffs. I thought he competed, thought he battled hard, but I thought it was a pretty unfair situation that the Phillies threw him in. Then, flash forward to next year. We saw a full season of sample size from Kerkering, and frankly, I thought he got a million times better as the season goes on. His first year, that first brief stretch that we had of him pitching, what was evident to me was the talent was there, but he didn't have a lot of confidence or the pitchability. He didn't attack hitters in the way that I like to see relief pitchers do, and really all pitchers do. That it felt like there was a lot more just reliant on the one pitch there, that he was just kind of, didn't have that attack-minded approach when he was on the mound that I thought he developed throughout last year. But what really sparked this article overall was this video overall, was this article on Phillies Nation here by Bailey Digg, I believe is how you say his name here. And he writes, Orion Kerkering could be the key to the Phillies, key Phillies reliever in 2025 with bullpen, quote, pretty well set. So what he says is, to start out, late last month, Phillies president of baseball operations Dave Dombrowski made it sound like the current group of relievers employed by the club will likely be the only one showing up in Clearwater in a little less than 6 weeks when pitchers and catchers report on February 12th. Quote, I think so, said Dombrowski about whether or not the Phillies are finished adding to the bullpen. I mean, again, you can always get better, and you always listen. I think the bullpen is pretty well set up at this time. Two former Phillies relievers, Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Estevez, are free agents. In October, Dombrowski said it was unlikely both would be back with the team in 2025. Right now, it looks like neither will be back. Matt Gelb of The Athletic wrote on Thursday that Hoffman is said to be seeking a deal similar to the one Clay Holmes scored with the New York Mets. Holmes signed for 3 years and $38 million. New York is slated to use Holmes as a starter instead of a reliever, something teams have reportedly thought about doing with Hoffman, and Hoffman seems to be open himself. Either way, re-signing Hoffman or Estevez doesn't seem like it's in the Phillies' future. And while this is disappointing to me, more so from the Jeff Hoffman angle specifically here, I do kind of understand, and I kind of have dove into this in a couple different videos, but I think the root of that has much more to do with his desire to be a starter and the financial benefits that come with that than I think it has to do with anything with the Phillies organization. I think If they had a clean chance of bringing this guy back, I would like to believe that is the case, and I still think he could play a very key role on this team as a high-leverage reliever. I don't think that is what Jeff Hoffman wants at this point in his career, and we will see when that deal is ultimately signed and whatever team he lands on what the reality of that situation is, but that is kind of my feeling on the situation for why that is the case. But the article continues on. The top of the reliever market has moved slowly. It hasn't stopped the Phillies from adding to their bullpen. They signed former Blue Jays All-Star Jordan Romano during winter meetings. The team hope he refines his form after an injury-plagued 2024. Romano's deal is for 1 year. The right-hander is expected to be a high-leverage arm in the back of the Phillies' 2025 pen. The club also signed righty Joe Ross to a 1-year deal. Ross will be a swingman. Another right-handed high-leverage reliever the Phillies will rely on moving forward is Orion Kerkering. The 2022 fifth-round pick made 64 appearances and posted a 2.29 ERA last season. Among qualified relievers in the National League, only 10 had a higher wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs, than Kerkering at 1.5 in 2024. The right-hander was 21st in WAR among all qualified big leaguers. A large part of Kerkering's effectiveness came from the use of his slider. He used it 55.7% of the time. Hitters batted .226 against it with a .306 slugging percentage, and continues on to say, Kerkering showed the ability to get both right and left-handed hitters out last year. It's a quality that makes him a great option for late innings, high-leverage situations, no matter the pocket of hitters due up. Righties posted a .531 OPS versus Kerkering in 2024. Lefties had a .690 OPS against him, a mark lower than the league average of .734 for left-handed hitters versus right-handed pitchers. Kerkering also strikes out plenty of batters without using a lot of walks. He struck out 28.8% of batters faced last year. His walk rate was just 6.6%. Both marks were well above average. Manager Rob Thomson mostly used Kerkering in the 7th inning of games in 2024. Hoffman was mainly used in the 8th and 9th innings. Esvez didn't enter a game for the Phillies before the 9th during the regular season. Kerkering was essentially third on the bullpen right-handed late game depth chart down the stretch, but now with Hoffman and Estevez likely signing elsewhere, Kerkering entering his age 24 season could find himself at the top of the depth chart at some point in 2025. Such a role would make him a key reliever with this Phillies team. So a lot to digest here, but the biggest takeaway for me, I think there is a genuine belief in Orion Kerkering within this Phillies organization, and I think that is the right stance to take. Again, I saw tangible growth in his attack and his approach last year. That is something that I think he can only build on. And let's not forget, he is 24 years old. That is incredibly young by any baseball player's standards there. And particularly when looking at the expectations and opportunities he was thrown in, yes, they were 7th inning spots, but this was basically setting up the setup, man, that you were in the pathway to close out games, and that is something that Kerkering delivered in the vast majority. And also, I do have a sneaking suspicion that there will be another name entered to the mix. I can't imagine that this is just it from a Phillies perspective. To kind of put into the full perspective for what a quiet offseason this is, let's look at the largest contracts that have been handed out on a year-by-year basis. Shout out to Phillies Tailgate. So going back, we'll start in the 2017-18 season, in which the largest contract in the offseason was Jake Arrieta for a 3-year, $75 million deal. 2018-19, Bryce Harper for 13 years, $330 million. The next offseason, Zack Wheeler for 5 years, $118 million. The next year, JT Realmuto, 5-year, $115.5 million. Then comes Nick Castellanos, 5-year, $100 million. Then Trey Turner, 11-year, $300 million. The next season, Aaron Nola with 7 years, $172 million. And then this offseason, the largest deal that has been done, Max Kepler, 1 year, $10 million. Now, this is not to say that the Phillies are not spending money. They obviously are, and to give out the full details of that here, that we do have, basically they rank second in the league in payroll is the overall takeaway here. It is not a money issue, but it is a usage of assets issue. I think the Phillies kind of feel like they topped out in a lot of spots, and they need a little bit of internal growth. This is kind of an older team that we know who Kyle Schwarber is. We know who Bryce Harper is, Nick Castellanos, Trey Turner. These guys aren't really getting better, but they need these breakout stars like Orion Kerkering to be able to basically grab the bull by the horns and be that guy. I think that is the spot that they're going to put him in. Now, let's say this does not work out as planned. What I think kind of the pivot here is then there's a midseason addition. Then you get a new Carlos Estevez, hopefully a guy a little bit higher quality, that you can get a reliever. Relievers are probably the easiest position to fill as far as when you're shopping at the deadline. Where's the team that's underperforming? Where's their closer? Where's their best reliever? Let's grab them. That can work quite often, and we've seen the Phillies attack this direct approach right there. But I think plan A for this Phillies team, I think there's a real world where Orion Kerkering gets legitimate closing opportunities this year, and that may be the right pathway for this franchise. Still a lot left to go down this offseason and be played on the field, so let's not rush to conclusions. But I think there's going to be a lot of Orion Kerkering hype leading up once pitchers and catchers do report, and we will see if he's able to live up to those expectations there. But I do want to hear from you guys in the comments. I think I'm a firm believer that it may not be this year, but we are inching towards Kerkering being the guy in this Phillies bullpen, the closer that this team needs. Maybe not this coming season, but I do think in the near future, within the next 3 years, that he will be ready to take on that full closer role, and I think for a long time moving forward. So let me know if you guys are on the same page as me. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in this video. We are getting closer to pitchers and catchers reporting. Almost baseball season around the corner there, so we're going to be rocking with you from start to finish. Appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning into this video here. As always, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like if you have not already. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.